Everything about the house on Hamilton Street seemed stuck in a distant decade. The porch creaked with the wear of footsteps long gone, and ivy curled up the brick like secrets too old to be told out loud. And yet, beneath the humdrum of suburban stillness, the house watched everything. For Delaney Cho, returning to the house was not a choice. It was her final obligation. She stepped out of the taxi with a box of files under one arm, a tote bag slung over the other. Her black coat flared slightly in the cold as the driver pulled away. The air had that January bite that cracked lips and reminded you of things you hadn't said. Her mother's funeral had been 2 weeks ago, and not a single member of her mother's side had shown up. Not Uncle Silas with his grating voice and gaudy cufflinks. Not Aunt Mina, who had once told Delaney at 13 that she'd never be marketable enough to marry well, and definitely not her older half-sister, Talia. Talia, who got the upstairs bedroom and the car at 16. Talia, who never called unless she wanted money or someone to guilt trip. Talia, who hadn't even called when their mother died. Delaney inserted the key into the old front door with effort. It had swollen from weather and grief. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and fading lavender, her mother's favorite. The living room was pristine, too clean, like someone had already started packing up the past. A plastic bin sat near the fireplace labeled "Donate." Most of the things in it were Delaney's childhood books and trophies. Of course they were. In the kitchen, a manila envelope sat neatly on the counter. Her name was scrawled on it in her mother's signature teal ink. For Delaney only. The handwriting trembled. Her mother's health had deteriorated rapidly, her cancer stealing not just her energy but her voice in the final weeks. Delaney took care of her every day after work, bathing her, holding her hand, feeding her, whispering comforting words into the silence Talia never broke. With shaking hands, she opened the envelope. There was a letter, brittle and tear-stained. "My dearest Laney, I know you think I never stood up for you, that I let Talia take too much, that I was always too quiet, too scared. But you were always my strength. I want you to know. Room 2. A belongs to you now. Not just the room. Everything it contains. The key is taped beneath this envelope. Love always, Mom." Delaney paused. Room 2, A. She hadn't stepped foot into that room since she was a child. Her mother used to keep it locked. She remembered once sneaking in when she was 7 and being caught, not scolded, but pulled out silently, as if the room itself was too heavy to speak about. She peeled the tape under the envelope and found the tiny bronze key. The staircase creaked as she ascended. Room 2A was the farthest room down the hall, past the photos no one ever looked at, and the grandfather clock that hadn't ticked since 2003. She opened the door. The room was pristine. A writing desk in the corner, drawers locked, floorboards gleaming, a small fireplace that looked as though it had been used recently. And on the wall, photos, dozens, of her. Not Talia, her. From babyhood to last Christmas, when she brought soup to her mother wrapped in a scarf. Even her college graduation, though she didn't remember anyone there with a camera. Delaney stumbled forward. She was seen. She was always seen. And then she noticed the envelope on the desk. This one bore the emblem of a law firm. Downstairs, the front door slammed. Delaney froze. "Took you long enough," came a voice from below. Talia. Of course she came now. Delaney tucked the law firm envelope under her coat. This wasn't going to be a quiet visit anymore. Delaney didn't move. She stayed still in the doorway of room 2A, the silence behind her growing louder than her half-sister's footsteps below. The envelope beneath her coat suddenly felt like it was made of fire. "Talia," she said softly to herself, tasting the bitterness of the name. It had been 2 years since they last spoke, and the last time ended with Talia accusing her of manipulating their mother for sympathy. She tucked the key back into her pocket and gently closed the door behind her, pressing the latch until it clicked. She didn't want Talia knowing about the room, not yet. Not until she knew what was inside that envelope. Delaney stepped down the stairs slowly, forcing calm into her body with every footfall. Talia was standing in the middle of the living room, as if she owned it. Long leather coat still on, sunglasses still perched high on her head like a crown. Her perfectly manicured fingers curled around a Starbucks cup she hadn't paid for herself. Probably had some man Uber it over. "Wow," Talia said, looking around with a mocking smirk. "Still smells like regret in here." Delaney ignored the jab. "You weren't at the funeral." Talia rolled her eyes. "I was in Tulum. I lit a candle. Same difference." There it was, that effortless cruelty wrapped in nonchalance. "I took care of her, Talia, every single day, while you—" "Oh, please." Talia dropped her coat onto the couch like a conquering empress. "Don't get all Florence Nightingale on me now. You did what you always do. Cling. She liked you because you made her feel needed. That's not love, Laney. That's codependence." Delaney stared, letting the insult pass through her. She'd stopped letting Talia's words pierce years ago. But what she couldn't ignore was the thick folder tucked under Talia's arm. Legal papers? She knew the look of them. "You're not here to mourn," Delaney said. "No," Talia replied easily. "I'm here for what's mine." Delaney's chest tightened. "There's a will?" she asked carefully. "Of course there's a will," Talia snapped. "What do you think this is? Some amateur hour estate? Mom might have been frail, but she wasn't stupid. I had her talk to a lawyer last spring. Everything's clean." Delaney blinked. "You had her talk to a lawyer?" "Yep. She wanted to make sure the house stayed in the family, and that it stayed intact. I made sure of that. You're welcome." "I never heard about this." "Because she didn't want drama," Talia replied with a smug smile. "She said you wouldn't understand, that you'd make it a thing. But don't worry, Laney, you'll get your little inheritance too. There's a life insurance policy. You'll be fine." Delaney didn't reply. She could feel her mother's letter, folded and trembling beneath her coat, pressing against her ribs like a secret heartbeat. Later, in the guest bedroom, Delaney opened the envelope. It was an addendum, dated 3 months ago, signed and witnessed. A formal amendment to the original will, written by a different firm than the one Talia used. And in it, the house was left to Delaney. Every room, every key, every memory. Her breath caught, not shared, not split, just her. She barely slept that night. Talia had moved into the master bedroom as if she still had any right to it, and Delaney lay in the guest bed beneath a creaky fan, staring at the ceiling. Her mother had known what would happen. That's why she didn't tell Talia. That's why the letter was written in secrecy. Delaney had been entrusted with something bigger than she realized. In the early hours of dawn, she returned to room 2A. The lock clicked again and she slipped inside, locking the door behind her. She sat at the desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside were files, dozens of them. Folders labeled in her mother's careful handwriting. Talia, 2009. Talia, creditors, SILAS, INHERITANCECLAIMTWOTHOUSANDELEVEN, Room 2. A title, Legal Files. Delaney froze. There was something deeper here, a web. Her mother had been documenting everything, protecting her from something, or someone. She pulled out the folder titled Talia, 2009, and flipped it open. The first paper was a hospital bill. Underneath it, an arrest record. Then, a confidentiality agreement. Delaney's eyes widened, her hands trembled. What had her sister done? And what had her mother paid, silently, to cover it up? Downstairs, a phone rang. Then silence. Then Talia's voice, cold and clipped. "Yeah, she's here, but not for long." Delaney snapped the folder shut. She didn't know the whole story yet. But whatever Talia had hidden, it was buried in this room, in these files. And she was going to unearth every single secret. Because the house didn't just belong to her, it was her weapon now. The house didn't sleep anymore. Delaney could feel it, an energy beneath the wallpaper, a humming in the baseboards like something long repressed was waking up. Room 2A, once locked and silent, had become a vault of shadows and unfinished truths. And now she was holding the keys, all of them. She sat cross-legged on the faded rug, folders sprawled around her like puzzle pieces. Dawn's pale light crept through the blinds, washing her in silver-blue hues as she flipped through the next file. Talia, creditors. The documents told a story Talia never had. Delaney had always assumed Talia was just cruel out of nature, that her hunger for control and entitlement came from a place of superiority. But this, it was desperation. Talia had declared bankruptcy twice, quietly. She owed money to people she never wanted Delaney or anyone to know about, people who didn't take no for an answer, private collectors, a firm out of Baltimore with a reputation for leveraging silence for favors. One of the names on the forms repeated. Grantham and Price Associates. There was a redacted agreement signed in 2017. Her mother's signature was on it. Delaney's stomach sank. Her mother had paid off Talia's debt, maybe even more than once. All those months when the medications got delayed, when her mother had said she was fine with the cheaper treatments. Delaney had thought it was humility. Now she wondered if it was sacrifice. Downstairs, the clink of glass startled her. She rose quietly, stuffing the files back into the drawer and locking it behind her. She found Talia in the kitchen pouring orange juice into a wine glass, wearing one of their mother's silk robes like a costume. Up early, Talia said, sipping with a smirk. Sleep that bad on the peasant mattress? Delaney stayed silent. Talia didn't wait for a reply. I called the lawyer. He's coming Thursday. You can pretend to be surprised when he reads the will. Delaney tilted her head. You sure he's reading the right will? That froze Talia for half a second, but she recovered quickly. What's that supposed to mean? Delaney smiled thinly. Just wondering how much you really know. About Mom, about what she left behind. Talia narrowed her eyes. You've always had this annoying habit of thinking you know more than you do. No, Delaney said. I've just always known when something smells wrong. And then she walked out, leaving her sister's cold stare trailing behind her like a knife to the back. Later that afternoon, Delaney drove to the law firm printed on the second envelope, Winston and Clark, LLP, nestled in a gray two-story building with ivy-covered columns and an air of discretion. The receptionist greeted her politely, and within minutes, a man in a gray suit with tired eyes appeared. Ms. Cho, he said warmly, extending a hand. I'm Thomas Clark. I was your mother's estate advisor. I'm sorry for your loss. Delaney nodded, heart tight. Thank you. I found some documents. She said you handled something, separate from her prior will. Clark nodded slowly. Yes. Your mother came to me last fall. She was concerned about pressure from other family members. She asked me to help her revise the will discreetly. He opened a locked drawer, pulled out a file with the familiar teal label. She was adamant. She didn't want this read until you asked for it directly, or until the house was contested. Delaney took a deep breath. It's being contested now. He nodded again, solemn. Then it's time. Back at the house, Delaney found a new voicemail waiting on the landline. No one ever used it, except for people who knew the house before cell phones existed. A man's voice crackled through the speaker. Mina here. I know you're staying at the house. Just so you know, Silas called me. He says there's been a complication with the estate. Talia's nervous, wants to meet. But you don't need to be involved. Let the adults handle it. Delaney stared at the phone like it had just hissed. Let the adults handle it? She deleted the message. Then, like muscle memory, she found herself climbing the stairs again. Back to room 2A. Back to the only place in the house that felt like hers. There was one drawer she hadn't opened. Top left of the writing desk. Tiny keyhole. Same bronze key she'd found under the envelope. She slipped it in and turned. Inside, photos. All printed on matte paper. All black and white. All of Talia. But not from childhood. These were from within the last few years. In bars, in parking lots, entering buildings with men who didn't look like friends. One photo was taken in front of a courthouse. another near a payday loan center. And the last one? Talia sitting across from a man in a sleek suit, handing him a thick envelope. Delaney recognized him. He was in the firm's letterhead. Grantham and Price. Her mother had been investigating her, or protecting her, or both. And Delaney was just beginning to realize the will wasn't just about property, it was a trap. And Talia had already stepped in it. Talia always played offense. From the moment they were children, she'd walked into every room like it owed her something. She had a way of filling a space, of making people doubt their own opinions, simply by blinking slowly and tilting her head. She knew exactly how to be the victim, the hero, and the queen, whichever suited the moment best. But for the first time, Delaney could feel it. Talia was sweating. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to notice the tightness in her tone, the way her smiles no longer reached her eyes. She was checking her phone obsessively, whispering in the hallway, going outside for calls that ended abruptly when Delaney walked past the window. The weight of room 2A was pressing against her. Good. Let it press harder. That evening, Delaney stood in the garage, surrounded by decades of boxed-up lives. Moths fluttered around the single bulb overhead, casting shadows over old Christmas decorations, broken lamps, and the rusted remains of a treadmill their mother never used. She was looking for one thing, the original copy of the old will, the one Talia claimed to have arranged with Mom's blessing. Delaney found it inside a cracked filing cabinet behind a pile of empty suitcases. Stamped, dated, signed. But the signature was shaky, more so than her mother's usual hand. And something else caught her eye, the witnesses. One was a notary, and the other, Silas, her uncle. The man who hadn't spoken to their mother in 6 years. The man who once tried to sue her for a slice of their grandfather's estate and lost. Bitter didn't begin to cover it. Delaney snapped a photo of the signature page with her phone. Something wasn't right. Her mother never would have included Silas in something so personal. Not after what he did. When Delaney returned inside, the dining room was quiet. Too quiet. Talia wasn't in her room. Her car was gone. Good. That gave her time. She opened her laptop and pulled up the Grantham and Price website. Her fingers hovered over the keys, uncertain, but driven. The man in the surveillance photo, the one across the table from Talia, was listed on the Associates page. Julian Barrick, Special Counsel. She clicked his name. Focus areas: debt restructuring, family estate claims, litigation support for alternative asset disputes. Every word screamed leverage artist. Delaney wasn't sure if Julian had been working for Talia or on her, but one thing was clear. Her sister was tangled in something too complicated for Charm to solve. She scrolled down and found the firm's generic contact form. On instinct, she typed, "I believe one of your associates is involved in a fraudulent will dispute. I have photographic evidence and original estate documentation. I would like to speak with Julian Barrick directly. DC." She didn't sign her full name, not yet. At 11:43 p.m., the front door creaked open. Delaney, sitting in the dark with only her laptop glow, didn't move. Talia tiptoed through the hallway, heels in her hand, muttering something into her phone. "No, she's still here. I told you the girl's like a roach. She won't leave unless we fumigate the damn place." Delaney stood. The light from the laptop illuminated her face like a specter. Talia froze mid-step. "Oh, you're up," she said, voice sliding back into velvet. "Didn't mean to wake you." "I found the old will," Delaney said calmly. Talia blinked. In the garage, filed under junk, right next to the broken sled. Talia's jaw twitched. "It's strange, really," Delaney continued. "Mom's signature is so shaky on it, and Silas, who wasn't even talking to her, somehow witnessed it. Funny how you never mentioned that." Talia laughed once, sharp and flat. "You're reading too much into everything. You always do. You think every word means something." "Sometimes it does," Delaney said, stepping closer. "Like fraud. That one means a lot right now." There was a flicker behind Talia's eyes, not fear, calculation. "You don't want to do this, Laney." Number, "You don't want me to." Later, Delaney sat back upstairs in room 2A, arms wrapped around herself as she reread her mother's letter for the 20th time. I want you to know, room 2A belongs to you now. Not just the room, everything it contains. Her mother had been saving her, from Talia, from the vultures, from a lifetime of being the overlooked daughter. She reached for her phone. One missed call from an unknown number, a voicemail. She hit play. Ms. Cho, this is Julian Barrick returning your message. I believe we should speak. Privately. Preferably before the reading of the will. Some things should not be revealed in public. Delaney's pulse quickened. It was working. But the game had changed. And now it wasn't just about the house. It was about exposure and survival. Delaney came downstairs just as the ringing stopped. The house was unusually still. Talia had vanished, but not without leaving behind her scent, expensive perfume clinging to the curtains, like a warning. The empty wineglass from dinner was overturned. One of the candles had burned itself into a pool of wax on their mother's favorite antique runner. She checked the landline. One new message. She pressed play. Delaney, this is Silas. I'm calling before I drive out there, which is a courtesy I don't usually give. You need to hand over any documents you've been snooping through. This estate belongs to the family. If you make this difficult, I won't be as generous as Talia was. You have 24 hours. The machine beeped. Delaney stared at the phone for a long time before lifting the receiver, yanking the line out of the wall and tossing it into the trash. There would be no more messages. Later that day, she met again with Mr. Clark, her mother's attorney. They sat in his private office, blinds closed, soft jazz playing faintly in the background. She handed him the USB drive and a scanned folder of everything from room 2A. I want all of it backed up, off-site, and secure, Delaney said, her voice flat. Mr. Clark nodded. This is quite a lot. Your mother documented everything, with timestamps, receipts, even voice memos. Delaney's stomach turned. Voice memos? Clark clicked through a directory and opened one. March 3rd. Talia visited today. She says she needs money for a down payment on a new condo, but she lied. I checked. She's trying to pay off Grantham and Price again. I told her no. She screamed at me, said she'd take the house if I didn't comply. I'm scared of what she might do. I'm scared of how far she'll go. Delaney leaned forward, trembling. I need to make this public, don't I? She whispered. Clark looked at her with a grim expression. Yes, before they bury you in paperwork, or worse. By evening, the house was alive again. This time, with voices. Silas had arrived. His voice boomed through the entryway. Laney girl, there you are. You should have called. I would have brought dinner. No need for all this tension between us. Delaney stepped into the hallway. He looked just as she remembered. Slick hair, pressed shirt, teeth too white to be honest. Talia stood behind him like a loyal dog on a leash. We're not having dinner, Delaney said coldly. Silas spread his arms. Come on. You're smarter than this. We all know the original will left everything split evenly. That's fair. That's family. Delaney held up a copy of the amended will. The new will was signed, filed, and witnessed, and it names me the sole heir. This house is mine. Silas's eyes narrowed. Talia looked away. And what makes you think you can enforce that? He asked. Delaney smiled, slow and dangerous. I've got the receipts, literally. She walked to the desk in the corner, opened her laptop, and turned the screen toward them. A video began to play. Their mother's voice, her face, clear, calm. Talia flinched. Silas watched, arms folded, the color slowly draining from his face, as Mei Cho listed every transaction, every signature forged, every creditor paid off under threat, every lie. When the video ended, Delaney shut the screen. I suggest you both leave, before I forward this to the press, or the DA. Talia's voice cracked. You wouldn't. Delaney stepped forward, nose to nose with her sister. You really think I won't burn this whole fantasy to the ground? Silas opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at Talia. We're not winning this one, he muttered. Not yet, Talia hissed back, but she doesn't know everything. They left without another word. Delaney stood at the window, watching the BMW pull away down the street. And for the first time since her mother passed, the house felt quiet, but not safe. That night, Delaney dreamed in fragments. Her mother brushing her hair in room 2A, Talia whispering to someone in the shadows, Silas standing over her bed. A lock turning in slow motion, a fire crackling, licking the edge of a photograph. She woke up sweating. The house groaned. Outside, a car engine revved, then shut off. Someone was out there. She crept to the front window and peeked through the blinds. A dark figure stood across the street, staring, not moving. She backed away slowly and checked the front door. Still locked, but the key, the spare, it was no longer in the dish by the door. Her breath caught. Room 2. A wasn't just a sanctuary. It was about to become her only safe place. Because the storm wasn't over. It was about to begin. Delaney didn't sleep the rest of that night. She sat inside room 2A with the door locked, a chair braced beneath the knob, her mother's old desk lamp casting a pool of golden light across the scattered files. Her laptop sat open, cursor blinking on an email draft to the local newspaper editor. She hadn't sent it. Not yet. Downstairs, the floor creaked once around 2 a.m., another at 3:17. Too slow for wind, too familiar to be random. Whoever had taken the spare key wanted her to know they were here. By morning, a silence thicker than fog settled over the house. When she finally emerged, the door had been closed again. The key dish was empty. On the kitchen table sat a single piece of paper. You don't know what you've started. You should have stayed quiet. No signature, just a line of ash across the corner. Delaney didn't bother calling the police. Not yet. She knew how this would play out. A break-in with no damage, an empty threat with no prints. They'd dismiss it. Instead, she made one last appointment with Clark. They met in a secure office downtown, high up in a glass tower, the city buzzing beneath them. I want it public, she said. All of it. Now. Clark nodded, sliding over a prepared packet. This is the media release. Once you sign it, the press gets everything. The amended will, your mother's statements, the financial records, and the voice recordings. Delaney hovered her pen above the paper. She thought about her mother's thin voice cracking in those final months, the warmth of lavender she had kept bottled in every room, the secrets she had been too afraid to share until now. And then she signed. It was done. The fallout was swift. Within 48 hours, the Los Feliz Tribune ran a front-page piece. Daughter exposes family fraud. Estate battle erupts over secret will. Within 72, Grantham and Price issued a public denial, but quietly removed Talia from their client registry. By day 4, Silas's business license had been flagged for review after new documents from Room 2. A revealed suspicious use of estate funds tied to another relative's property dispute. And by the end of the week, Delaney received a letter from Talia. You'll think you've won now, that you're clean and noble and good, but you're not. You just had the benefit of being chosen. You don't deserve the house. You just inherited a curse. T. Delaney folded the letter in half and dropped it in the fire. On the 7th day, she walked through the house like it was hers for the first time. No footsteps behind her, no shadows moving where they shouldn't. No locked drawers. She opened every window, let the wind in. She stood in room 2A, where the desk had been cleared, the files boxed and sent to her lawyer. Only the photo of her and her mother at age 10 remained, taped to the inside of the desk drawer. She smiled. Not everything needed to be documented in triplicate. Some things only needed to be felt. That spring, Delaney started a community program out of the house, an estate literacy workshop for caregivers and adult children, teaching them how to protect their parents, their legacies, and themselves. She called it Room 2A. The name traveled. By year's end, she had city funding and an invitation to speak on local radio. Not bad for the daughter who was never supposed to be the one in charge. On the 1-year anniversary of Mei Cho's passing, Delaney stood alone in the front garden, lavender plants blooming around her, phone buzzing with texts from friends she'd finally started letting in. She looked up at the house. It had stopped watching her. It was home now. She placed a small plaque beside the porch, in memory of Mei Yun Cho, who never stopped protecting her daughter, even when no one saw her do it. She turned to go inside, and as she did, a breeze stirred behind her. She paused, looked back, and smiled. No ghosts, just legacy, and a woman who finally knew her worth.